Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here, and welcome to Comic Review Month for the channel. So if you did not know, Free Comic Book Day is coming back this month. If you're watching this on the day that this has premiered, which is August 1st, next Saturday is Free Comic Book Day. So don't miss it. You know, we didn't have it last year for very obvious reasons. It was also pushed back. It's typically in May for anyone that doesn't know. It's normally the first Saturday in May. It was pushed back, once again, for the same obvious reasons. So it is the first Saturday in August. So go get yourself some free comic books. Support the local comic shops, get yourself some stuff. If you didn't know, comic shops actually pay for the Free Comic Book Day comics, so they lose money on that typically. So try to buy some little trinkets here to buy something from them, you know, try to support. So I wanted to do every weekend, I will be doing a review, probably a series of reviews. I'll probably have multiple reviews each weekend, but I'm going to be doing a series of reviews throughout the entire month of comic books that I have not read. Like most of you, especially if you play games, you probably have a bunch of stuff where you're like, I bought that thing, really wanted it, was so excited to have it, haven't even cracked it open 5 years later. Stuff like that. So we're kicking things off with The Walking Dead, which I actually have read. I've read through 1, 2, and 3, but I'm rereading 1, 2, and 3 because I'm finally going to finish 4, which I have had for over a year now, and I just haven't read it. So I was like, you know what? Why not kick things off with the one comic that I've actually put some real effort into, getting through, and that's The Walking Dead. So we're going to be going through The Walking Dead Compendium 1 through 4. Each one will have its own thing. I'll probably do a recap at the end just to talk about my experience going through the entire series all over again, actually remembering characters, stuff like that. So getting into this review, pick this up. If you have not read The Walking Dead, you should read it. If you've seen The Walking Dead, you should read it because it's basically two different universes. It's like Marvel movies, Marvel comics. Same characters, but they do some real different stuff. Technically, Marvel Comics, even in Marvel Comics, does different stuff in different universes, but you get my point. This is very different from the show. There will be full spoilers at a certain point because, for one, this is super, super old. Literally the entire series is finished. You have no excuse not to pick this up. It's super cheap at this point. Get this. If you've been watching Invincible, where you're like, God, I like Invincible. Oh, same guy right here, Walking Dead. Invincible is actually in here. There's a part where they show that one of the characters is reading Invincible because it was like, oh, it's the same comic, same creator. So if you like Invincible, same dude. Bet you didn't know that because you probably just did. Who knows? You probably did because they say it all the time. It's like Invincible by Robert Kirkman, The Walking Dead. I know people fell off The Walking Dead. I understand. But this is great. So we're going to get into it. First off, it's good. It's gory. It's good. The characters are great. The drama is really intense. Even going through it, because it had been years since I'd actually read the beginning of this, it was pretty messed up. Like, there were parts where I'd be like, I remember them. I remember this person. And then, especially being a fan of the show for so long, I love going back and being like, oh, that's interesting. I forgot how different some characters were, where they're like, like Carol, for instance. Like, Carol TV show, super cool. Sarah Connor style. Like, she's full Terminator mode. Like, she's surviving on her own. Carol in this, however, that's a different person, I assure you. So we're going to get into spoilers pretty much right now. If you haven't read it, definitely check it out. It's really good. You can get it on Amazon probably for like $30 at this point. I think I bought it at full price, however long ago that was when I was in college. So definitely check this out. The whole series is out in compendium form. It's only 4, they're big, but there's 4 of these. You can get the whole series, you're good to go. So we're going to get into it. We're going to go into full spoilers. I went through my list because I was like, there's so much stuff that I don't remember that I'm basically rereading for the first time. And it's like, I want to write some of this stuff down. Now, a lot of this I didn't start until I was probably like, well, about there. So I went through a bunch of it, probably even further than that. Went through a bunch of it and I didn't write anything. And I was like, I should probably start writing some stuff down. So a lot of it's just going to be off the cuff, kicking things off. And then we'll get into things when they get around. This is basically around the prison. So you know how that goes. But really enjoyed it. Just going through it again, I was like, man, I like the way it kicks off. It's one of my favorite openings, I think, for a comic, where it's like, it's cool. It's not just a comic, but really, I think why I like it so much is it's one of my favorite openings for something that involves zombies. I love zombie stuff. That's why I wore my Resident Evil shirt. I don't have any Walking Dead stuff, so all of my Walking Dead reviews I'll be wearing Resident Evil shirts. But Resident Evil is my favorite video game franchise. Because of that, I love horror, and because they involve zombies in that, I love zombies. Like, who didn't after a certain amount of time? And then, of course, the market got a little saturated. But The Walking Dead did it right, and I still enjoy it. Like, you go through and it's just like, this is fun. It's a great opening. It's a really mysterious opening. It just starts off with a dude who just wakes up. Like, he gets shot and then he just wakes up. And it's like, huh. Like, it's about zombies, but it's just seeing the dude. He goes into a coma. He wakes up. He's just alone. He doesn't understand what's happening. He just sees. It's like being the last man on Earth. Everything's just chaos. And then he gets into a series of oddly fortunate events where he ends up seeing his wife and his child again. And boy, oh boy, was that fun. It's like just going through the chaos of like the first camp. And once again, I'm probably going to do a lot of comparisons to the TV show because I watched the TV show first. So I think I watched the show up to maybe season 3. I want to say probably like up until the prison. So pretty much where this ends, I think that's kind of where I'd seen the show up to. And I was like, I think it's time to get into the comics. And so then I went back and I shot through the whole thing and I was like, wow, that's very different. Daryl doesn't even exist. If you didn't know that, he does not exist in this. So a lot of things are different. The hand, it's so crazy. But it was cool watching it. They go through, they get to the camp and it's like, all right, so here's what's happening. The world's chaos. They talk about how, military's going to come in. It's going to be a couple weeks. Everything's going to be cool. Rick shows up and it's like, hey, you're alive. Holy crap. That's insane. We never thought you were going to survive. Like, we left you with some people. They said they were going to protect you. Turns out that was fake. And so, hey, welcome back. That's good. Dale came in super quick and was like, dude, I just need to tell you, Shane, he crazy and he wants your wife. He's like, crazy old man. He almost got himself shot because he wasn't listening to that crazy old man. And Dale said some stuff, like just throughout the series, Dale would just bring up conversations and it was like, I kind of understand where he's coming, because at first he was trying to help Rick. He was just like, dude, you need to be careful about Shane. The dude's effing insane. And then it was like, he had the moment where he was talking with Rick where it's like, that could be Shane's kid. Like, I don't know why he was bringing some of this stuff up, because it was just like, that second conversation when they were on the farm where he was talking to Rick and was like, do you think? And it's like, you don't think I thought about that? I only had sex once with her. Like, I don't need this right now. And then, then he hugs him and was like, it's cool. Hey, why don't we just go inside? His third big conversation, which he actually had with Lori, and it was interesting where it was like, look, just don't say any of that crap to him. Just let it, like, we need this dude not to break right now. And it was like, he had some, like, those are like the 3 conversations of Dale that I found so interesting where I'm just like, he was trying to help. He was trying to figure it out. The second one, I think he was just making things worse by even bringing up that thought. But his first one, he was totally trying to give him the warning ahead of time. And then the third one, it was just like, look, I know you're both going through a lot. I'm not even trying to judge you. Things were wild. You do what you do. But I just got to say, don't F him up. We need Rick as a leader. And he's kind of snapping already right now. So I like Dell in this. He was always interesting. He brought up some weird stuff. And it was just like, I'm just trying to let people know what I know or what I feel. Just trying to talk it out. But as they go through, of course, things get crazy. Shane goes nuts. I love the way they did it in the comic where it was like, that was like their first moment was them at the camp for a decent chunk of time, and then it ends with Rick's best friend trying to kill him and his son having to kill his best friend. It's just like, man, that's just a crazy way to end things. And it's just like, all right, I guess we're moving along. They bring in the snow and everything. They talk about the zombies getting slower and stuff like that, which I thought was cool. I always like that element where people actually show the changing of times, which they could never really do. They didn't do until like, I think the most recent season of The Walking Dead was the first time they actually showed winter, because every other year it was like, it'd be a little expensive to like do this whole fake winter thing because they shoot in Atlanta and stuff like that. So they had always skipped over winter. And I remember when they first did that, especially after the prison, I was like, dang, I wanted to see them do winter, because that was one of my favorite things in the comic, was them talking about how it was cold and how it actually affects the zombies because they move slower and stuff like that. They would kind of hint at the science where they're figuring things out like, they walk slower now, or they're bigger now, and things like that as it heats up. I actually liked that. I thought that was one of the cool little world building things that they did. Go through the whole process. We have a lot of different characters come into the fold. We have Andrea and her sister. Her sister gets wiped out. The one dude whose name I totally forgot, who's in the beginning, who lost his wife early on. He was kind of quiet, kept to himself. He ended up being bit on the arm when he was punching the one zombie after Andrea's sister got bit. And it was just like, dang, that sucks. Then they move on. They think they found paradise. Like, wow, all these homes, like, they're just empty. Everything's cool. Everything was going well. They had the moment with Andrea and Dale, and they end up having sex and stuff. And it's like they're getting together. The woman that was like always super religious and stuff, she was kind of calming down. And I was like, as soon as I saw that moment and I read it again, I was like, I remember liking her. And like, that was the moment I started to like her. Like, she lightened up and she was just like, I'm happy for her. She lost her sister and they're bonding, it's like, I don't fully agree with it, but I'm just glad they're happy. And even her husband, like, the Ice Queen melted and she's like, oh, whatever. And I was like, I remember that was the moment I liked her. She closed the door and she does that smirk. And I was like, wow, That one thing makes you like a character, and the next day, and I just remember I was like, dang, and she died here. And the next day, he was like, oh, don't worry, everything we're starting to calm down. Boom, she's dead, and then a man is left with his sons, and he's just flipping out the whole time. And it took him a long time to get to the farm. Everything's going great. They meet Tyrese and his daughter and her boyfriend. I remember they died. It was not what I remembered for a minute because I was trying to piece stuff together. I was like, did they get killed? Did they do this? Did they do that? Just wild stuff. Just wild stuff. So then we go through all the chaos, lose a bunch of people. We get to the prison. And that's where we just get to. Obviously, I'm skipping a bunch of stuff. If you already read the comics, I just want to kind of recap some of my favorite moments after kind of re-experiencing this. And man, the prison was so good. I forgot how much, reading it, it's so different than watching the TV show where it's like, okay, yeah, they spent some time in the prison. It was, I think, 2 seasons or whatever. And that's kind of how they do it because that's what the comic book does. But in the comic, there's so much time spent at the prison. And this doesn't end. I mean, honestly, I think most of this really is set in the prison. Yeah. So most of this is actually in the prison. I think like more than half of this stuff is just the prison. So yeah, all of this is just the prison. This is everything before the prison. So the prison is a really big deal. And it's just like they spend so much time there. And then they meet the governor. And just all these they meet the prisoners. So we just go through the stuff. Otis is racist. I didn't remember that. I was like, oh, he dropped the N-bomb. That's wild. Like, just out of nowhere, he was racist. That's effed up. Patricia was dumb. She was just dumb. She was just like, okay, you know what? I'm totally going to help this guy who killed 2 girls. I remembered that. I knew he was the killer. That part I remembered when I was reading. I was just like, dang, this is effed up because they're about to, kill the girls. So they killed the twins. That was effed up. Whose names I don't remember. Like, there were some parts where I was just like, they had the girl twins and then they had the boy twins. I could not tell you any of their names. The boys, as far as I'm reading right now, I believe are still alive. I'm pretty sure they died later. It's been a minute, but I think they're gone. But I don't remember any of the young kids that aren't Carl or Sophia. They were just absent for so much time where you're just like, where are those people? Where are those characters? It's just funny. Patricia, though, she was like, this guy, he decapitated 2 young girls. What they're doing to you is so wrong. And then he punched her or something and called her a whore. I was like, this is wild. So that was crazy. Carol in this, so crazy. Like, oh my goodness. She just be kissing everybody. It's like, she liked Tyrese, and it seemed normal. It's just like they started to bond and all that good stuff. And then, things ended up happening, which goes right to Michonne. I forgot about this. Reading it, like, she just came in, and I just put, Michonne went straight to sucking dick. And she really did. Like, she just came in. Tyrese is just a nice looking black guy, I guess. He was like, oh, I kind of recognize you. You're a crappy football player. Ha ha ha. He was a little upset, and she was just like, you know what you need? Oral. And he was like, but that's nice. And it was like, wow. She was just like, Dick City. I'm there. So that's what she did. She just went right for it. And then, of course, that screwed thing up with Tyrese and Carol. And so Carol went around and was like, oh, Lori. And then kissing Lori. Then later she kissed Rick. She has so many issues with this woman, which obviously I wrote down later. But it was just a wild story. What a wild story. Just telling someone Carol's story in The Walking Dead, I think would make people want to read The Walking Dead. Like, just that one character, beginning to end for her, is so crazy and entertaining. You're just like, if that's one person, what else is happening in The Walking Dead? Like, I think she's like one of the perfect examples. If there's ever like pick one character to be like, what would make someone interested enough? You could tell her one story, and then it's like, if that's what happens to her, what happens to the people around her? And there's like nearly a dozen other characters that I think her story alone would kind of bring people in and just be like, that's so weird and crazy. And that's just her. Like, she barely even gets involved with the zombie stuff, and that's just her being crazy. And then it's like, there's zombies too. That's why The Walking Dead is so fun. That's why it's interesting. So, the stuff with Tyrese's daughter and her boyfriend, they were supposed to shoot each other, and then he shot too fast, and then Tyrese was, he kills him. I was like, yeah, makes sense. And, Rick just stands there because it's like, yeah, I get it. And that was kind of their first bonding moment. Then, of course, Rick kills the other prisoner later, and Tyrese was like, look, I get it. They, they had their cool moments. They were good buddies for a minute. I already mentioned Del and Andrea. The scene where the twins asked Del and Andrea if they're their new mom and dad after their father dies because he got bit in the leg, that was an interesting little moment. I was like, man, I'd forgotten about that very specific moment. It just makes Andrea cry and stuff, and Del kind of explains, like, we're not, not really, but if you want to call us that, you can. I was like, that was a really interesting moment for them, because I remember, some of the stuff you remember. I know Andrea's storyline in this is so different, from hers in the TV show. And I always, Andrea's super cool. I haven't gotten to a very specific point yet. I'm pretty sure she's still alive. And I liked Andrea in this. So we'll see as I keep reading. I'll start to remember more things and be like, oh, dang. Let's see. Carol wants to marry into their family. So weird. And then we get the governor. I was pretty much just waiting. I was like, they're dealing with the prisoners. They're dealing with the prison. They do all this stuff. And, it was just thinking, I was like, Rick wanted to get to that helicopter. And he was like, it's too dark now. Let's just keep going. And I was like, man, Rick is a little too trusting. Like that was the moment where I think I really officially read into it. And I was just like, he wants to be so hopeful in such a very dark situation. And that's what leads to him getting his hand chopped off. So they officially get to that moment. Boom, his hand gets chopped off instantly too. It was like, I remember, the first time I read that, I knew his hand got chopped off. But it was so fast. It was just like, all he did was like, we're not telling you anything. It was like, okay, here we go. Boom, your hand's gone. I was like, they did that over the span of like 2 freaking pages. And I was like, that's how he lost his hand? I thought it was like dramatic and all this stuff. It was just like, no, here we go. I'm in charge. Boop, it's gone. And I was just like, I was so shocked when I first read that. I was like, that's how it happened? It was nothing. He didn't do anything. He just said no. And he just chopped his hand off. I was like, this is super wild. Like, like seeing, especially coming off the TV show once again, I was like, the governor that they do like, oh, this dude, he's evil secretly, but he's nice to the people. And this, they're like, this dude is bad. And then they show like the kind of nice to the people thing afterwards. But man, he went right into it. It was like, I'm in charge. There goes your hand. Piss off. Take him to the doctor, and I'll deal with them all later. And it was just wild. Like the governor is an insane story, and I know it just gets crazier because obviously Negan comes up later. But as a first like big bad, the governor was pretty good. I liked his character and all the. It was unfortunate everything that happens because of that, of course, but it was really good. Obviously, Michonne's revenge, the super dark stuff they ended up doing with her and her being raped and stuff like that. Like that was just so intense, especially once again, way more compared to the TV show, for obvious reasons. And it was just super intense. And then she got a revenge, which was super intense. Putting a spoon. First off, she put the spoon up his butt, and then she took the spoon out, and then popped his eyeball out. And I'm just like, this is so. I can't believe that dude lived from that. And then it just got crazier and crazier. They had the Martinez thing. I forgot he was a bad guy. I was like, oh yeah, I remember Martinez a little bit. But what happened to him? Turns out he was bad the whole time, and then Rick chased him down, hit him with the car, blew his brains out, and then it's like, nah, I didn't bring him back. He's gone. It's like, oh, okay. And then the tank shows up. And I wrote here, the tank scene is full The Last of Us 2, because after the tank shows up, it's this real big peak of emotion, and then they cut, and it's like, here's what happened after Michonne left and the government. I didn't write any notes after that. I was in the zone after that. I was just like, man, here we go. And I just flew through the rest. But him surviving, him coming back, he's got one arm, he's got the eye patch, they have the tank rolling in. That's a heck of a way to end a comic, because some scenes you can tell is like, because it just keeps flowing, some moments you can tell like that was the end of an issue right there. When the governor shows up and it's just like shit, and they just show him like kill every last one of them, that was the end of a comic. And somebody would write that and was just like, what is gonna happen next week? Like, that's what happened when people read that issue. And it's just like, I still kind of get that experience, even though I can just flip to the next page. You still kind of get that in certain moments where you're just like, holy crap. Like, there's a moment that I'm pretty sure is in Compendium 2, if I'm not mistaken. That's, just one of those holy crap moments, which I could spoil it, but just in case, I guess, if you're trying to only get spoiled for the first Compendium, sure. But I loved it the whole way through. And then, of course, the actual end of the prison arc was just tragic. Like, just them going through everything, and Otis they kind of seemed like they were building it up to, like, where it seemed like, they showed the racist thing. It was like, okay, Otis is kind of a bad guy, and it seemed like they maybe had some idea. Like, you can tell, like, some things were happening, and it was like, okay, they would have scenes where he would be mad at other people, and then ultimately it just came down to like, he's dead now. And it was like, they were kind of building that out, like, just a little. They only did like maybe 2 or 3 moments, but they specifically had a couple of moments like, oh, secretly he's actually racist. Here he is, like, not understanding a joke from Dale, and he's just super pissed off at him, and he's mad that, Tyrese, the black guy, was bossing him around. And it seemed like they were going to kind of build up to something, and then nothing actually ended up happening, and it was just like, oh, okay, that's weird. I also skipped over, obviously, Carol killed herself. Insane. She had sex with that one dude who was 19, and she's like, I remember what boys were like at 19, had sex with him, and then just was like, I'm gonna talk to you. And then she walked forward. I forgot that's how she died, and that was crazy all over again. So that was wild. But of course, the governor, he just lied so much. It was like, look what they did. They killed their own guy. And Tyrese shouldn't have gone, like Tyrese and Michonne should not have gone out. I also feel like this is one of the weird things. I know that they had Tyrese there, and it was like, we also have, your samurai girl or whatever, and if we don't come back, they're going to kill her too. And I'm just like, they only came out with like 2 people. Sure, they could be over the horizon, but at this point, if both people are captured and one person is about to die in front of you, I would have just tried to save Tyrese. I would have been like, dude, just shoot this dude and try to save Tyrese. Like, he's the one who's here. Like, it was weird. Like, Rick's justification for that was super weird to me, because he's like, just think of Michonne, this would give her time to escape. And I'm like, if you shoot the dude who's standing there, I'm pretty sure Tyrese could escape. Like, they only had 2 people there. So it just seemed weird. I was like, that's a really weird justification for how they ended up handling that. So that was just weird to me. But that was, a crazy moment. Like, and they kill off Tyrese. They chop his effing head off with the katana. It's wild. And then, of course, they get into all sorts of chaos. And obviously the very ending of that moment is just them losing Lori and the baby, and like this woman who I know comes back later, I forgot her name now, but she ends up shooting them in the back and just like kills them both. And the scene, I didn't realize they had this when I first read it. I didn't even notice it until I read it this time. I didn't notice that the baby's hand was like underneath her, like you see like the little baby hand, and it was so effed up. I was like, this is depressing, this is so sad. And I'm gonna just show you guys because it's so effing depressing. But it's so wild. And like, it's just great. They killed off so many people in this. They killed off Lori. They killed off the baby. They killed off, what was her name? What was it? Alice. Alice got killed off. Lori got killed off. The baby got killed off. Dale got killed off. Everybody. I feel like everybody died. I feel like only 3 people actually lived from that whole situation. I know Glenn, of course, made it, but it's just wild. They killed off so many people in that end moment. It's just like an emotional, just turmoil. It's just like, this is just crazy. They just keep killing everybody. It's messed up. They got the baby hand. Look at this. That's a baby hand. That's effed up. That's just they killed a woman and they killed a baby. It's wild. It's just crazy to even see that now. Especially being a dad, I'm just like, that affects me way more now than it did when I originally read that when I was, 10 effing years ago. It's just crazy. Just like, it's such a crazy ending. And then, of course, off to issue number 2, or compendium number 2, I should say. But that's my review, I guess. This is more of a just kind of a talking back and forth. I guess it's not really much of a review, but I love the first compendium. I love the series as a whole from everything I've read, but man, it is interesting going back through it, not remembering everything. You remember, those bits and pieces, but just going through it, it's pretty wild. So I'm excited to go through the rest of the series. Compendium number 2 review will be up next weekend, so you guys can look forward to that. I'll be going through everything. That'll probably be what happened. Like once a week, I think, will be The Walking Dead. I'll probably have some other reviews in there as well. But thanks for checking this out. If you guys have any comments, I know this is super long, but for a compendium, just going through all my thoughts on it, figured it was worth doing. So definitely read this if you haven't. If I still haven't managed to spoil every single thing, because I barely remember most of the people's names anyway. So there are a lot of people that died that I haven't talked about. But definitely check it out if you haven't read it. I would love to know your thoughts on it. Just going through this. Like I said, I know this was a long video, but there's a lot to talk about for all of this. Issues, I think, 1 through 48. Yep, issues 1 through 48. So definitely great. I love that it says horror up here. That's the genre. Like, boop, horror. Great start to the series. The prison is just wild, and I know it just gets wilder from here. So I'm looking forward to rereading some of the extra stuff again and getting familiar with some of the other new characters that come into play and the fates of some people that I remember already and others I don't. So I'm excited for all of that stuff. But thanks for checking this out. If you guys have any comments, please put them down in the comment section below. Do not forget to go to Free Comic Book Day, Saturday, August 8th. And of course, thanks for watching.